Our guest on the RedTech Briefing today is Alexander Sempf. He is no stranger to the German and European broadcast market. He served as Managing Director of Radio Marketing Service for 8 years. You were in Berlin, were you, Alex?
In Hamburg, but I lived in
Hamburg.
Berlin.
Right. Okay. Then you went on a sabbatical, and you did this just as the COVID-19 virus changed the world, which is remarkable timing. And today you find yourself in Kampala, Uganda, running the East African Radio Service. And I must say, kudos to you. Very catchy acronym, EARS, ears. You are all about the world of audio and radio. It's a remarkable journey. It's a fascinating transition. When you decided to take that sabbatical, was Uganda in your sights?
Yes, it was, but under complete different circumstances. Our plan was to travel with our camper van throughout South and Southeastern Europe and spend 1 month in Uganda as advisor for East Africa Radio Service. And after 2 weeks, the owner asked, Alexander, can you stay for 1 or 2 more weeks? And after some time, I came back to him and told, no, I won't stay for 1 or 2 weeks longer. We will stay without limit and become part of this story here. And so, yes, we moved to Kampala, and now I'm serving as the managing director and co-owner of EARS here in Africa.
Wow, that's a very remarkable, it's a life-changing decision to say, yeah, I spent my life entire from birth till, what are you now, 25, 50? You make this transition, you decide that Uganda is your home forever. What's the trigger for a massive life-changing decision like that?
It is 2 things. First, the challenge to adapt to complete different circumstances, different people, different economy, political system, media industry. Nothing is similar to Europe or Germany. Yes. And second, to work in your own company, to be an entrepreneur was number 2. And this was, I didn't have really exact plans for the after sabbatical professional life. But on my agenda was one thing, work for your own company. And this dream comes through East Africa Radio Service.
What took you back? So, sorry, let me rephrase that. What shocked you when you arrived? What surprised you? What amused you? I want to hear about that experience, the emotions from, what you saw that you thought was remarkable. How would you cope? To, wow, this is amazing. I want more of this.
Amazing is Kampala, the place where we stay, is such a vibrant city. Even Indian cities like Mumbai, where my mother is coming from, is a nice, well-organized and calm place compared to Kampala. Kampala is really vibrant. Yes, and the speed is high. This is really was my first impression. Yes. On the other hand, poverty. We are in one of the poorest countries in the world, and this is obvious. But even this has something positive. This is attitude of people, how to deal with this. In Europe, especially in my home country, in Germany, people are always complaining about the circumstances. Here, people say, okay, I want to improve my personal life. And through hard working, through educating, and this impressed me. a lot. And no racism, not at all. It's really shamed me because I know how black people are treated in Europe, in Germany, because of color of skin. And if you live here as a white guy, nothing. There's nothing which has something to do with racism. And this is something where Europeans can learn a lot of people here in Uganda.
That is amazing to hear that part of your personal journey, which is just beginning. You've not been there for a very long time, but it's incredible still. I want to ask about EARS now. So what is the footprint? What do you cover? How large is it?
Well, we started in October 2019. 6 months later, this country here was locked down, completely locked down. There's not a single European country which has a lockdown like this we had here in Uganda. For example, the airport, the one and only international airport, was closed for 6 months. Not a single airplane leaving or arriving. Retailers closed, schools closed. Under these conditions, it's had a real tough start. And our team here is that our team survived this is something really, really great. And great.
Was there any business? Was there any business at all in that time? I mean, that 6 months sounds like everything ground to a complete halt.
10% from the plan, 10%, so nothing. And in October, the lockdown was released, and then we start business. And now I can tell you, we have more than 90 stations under contract, 90. We have Hypergrowth in revenues, and I'm proud to say that EARS now is number one when it comes to radio advertising in Uganda.
So you are a sales house. You're aggregating all of the...
We are a sales house.
Are you aggregating only the operators in Uganda? You haven't expanded that to the neighboring countries yet?
We just started it. We just started it some weeks ago. We start the preparations for expanding to Tanzania. We are called East Africa Radio Service. So Tanzania will be number one, but not the last one.
Yes.
Kenya will follow. And maybe in some years we have to change our name to All Africa Radio Service. But then the acronym is lost.
Correct. But that's great ambition. That is exactly the kind of ambition one needs when one's working in, as you say, you're an entrepreneur now and you're working across the continent and you're finding that there are enough opportunities for growth. Now, you talked about that horrendous lockdown. You talk about the poverty in Uganda, very, very poor country. And yet you talk about hyper growth in radio advertising. Where's that all coming from?
Well, brief background information about the media industry and the radio industry specific. Uganda is, as I already mentioned, a poor country. And Uganda is a very diverse country too. Only 45 million people, but 15 different languages, plus English. And radio is a local thing here. So it's serving the communities and it's able to do it in the local language with a focus on the region, on the villages where this broadcast is available. And we have, because of the poverty, many people don't have access to reliable electricity supply. So they don't have internet access. They don't have TV access. And the daily newspapers have an aggregated circulation of about 125,000 a day. So that's nothing. So if it comes to mass communication, it's radio. It's radio. The issue radio has is we have the decision makers, the advertisers are all based in Kampala. And there are more than 300 radio stations spread through the country. And there's no access for these stations to the advertisers. And what IRS is doing is aggregating it to a one-stop shop. Yes? And so we fill a gap. There is a gap, and this gap is now it's closing. We haven't closed it completely, but it's on the move to close. And for these, that's the reason why we are able to realize hypergrowth, because now radio is able to dig its potential. Yes, the potential is radio is the one and only mass media in the whole country. But before years, with only poor access to the advertisers, imagine you are an advertiser in Uganda. Would you like to negotiate with 100 or even 50 radio stations for a radio campaign? You will avoid everything and to do this. Yes? Yes. And that's the reason for this hypergrowth. Yes, to establish this connection between stations and advertisers.
Yeah, but I mean, what I understand of many African markets and radio markets in other developing countries, sometimes there isn't the standards that you use in European countries, in mature markets that have been around for a long time. You have ratings and measurements in the US, in the UK, even in South Africa, in Germany. You don't have that here. Surely the way of doing business in the absence of that sort of support, which you would have had as managing director at RMS, you would have had ratings as part of your sales pitch. You would obviously talked about the effectiveness of radio, but also the reach, and none of that exists here, especially for those radio stations that you are now serving. So how is the way you do business for a German with all of the, all of that infrastructure and process and systems and efficiency that you had, you're coming into a totally different market. How's it worked?
At first, it was a painful lesson to me. Yes, we have data, we have reach data, but not for every station, only for selection. And so a lot of radio planning in Uganda is by gut feeling. And this is one of our most important tasks for the future. The development of standards to replace gut feeling and emotion by database made decisions. This is very, very important to change that, but step by step. Yes, and what we do is we collect every data, we use every data which is available to us. Yes, and use it for planning radio campaigns to create the best possible impact for the advertiser. This is maybe only 50% of the efficiency of an European radio planning. But if you use this data, you create an advantage in competition for us as sales house but for the clients too. Because if the others are, your competitors are on 10% and you are on 20%, there's still 80% missing. But you are much better than your competitor. This is one of the lessons I've learned here. It's not about your speed. It's about, are you faster or slower than competition? And so campaign playing by ears has more impact for the advertiser than planned by anyone else. But to improve the quality and quantity of data is a real important challenge for a good future of the industry and for ears itself.
So there's this myth, maybe it's a myth, I don't know. Let's dispel it if it is, that business where data is scarce or hard to come by is generally done on the back of relationships, strong, entrenched relationships between the radio owner, the radio account executive, salespeople, and the advertiser, which will happen over many bottles of good Irish whiskey or Scotch whiskey. Is that true? Is it all relationship based? Have you found that different from what you've experienced in your home market?
Yes, definitely. It is a little bit the same like in Germany 20 years ago, where relationship management was often more important to deal with clients than data and facts. Yes, and this is quite similar. And if you are the new kid on the block, yes, you don't have this network, and to develop it is very, very difficult. I'm honest here, and especially in a country which still have a curfew at 9 p.m. So you develop your relations not during office hours.
Yeah, sure.
But later, and I'm honest. I'm struggling with that, and it just depends on the network, of salespeople, other directors here, and my network is increasing, but it's a challenge.
Have you found opportunities now, even though, like we say, it's not that long? Have you found opportunities to meld the way that Africans in East Africa and Uganda do business, radio, media business, with some of your experience and wisdom from Europe? Have you found opportunities to bring the two together? And if you have, can you give us concrete examples of how that's resulted in success and what specific elements or characteristics of a European way you have married with an African way?
Yeah. When I arrived here for the first time, I realized a lack of planning. I really realized a lack of planning. People didn't plan anything. Right? That's not fair, but only very few things. And my European attitude then was, oh, we need plans. We have to plan everything for strategy, and then step by step following the plan. But I had to realize that here, the unexpected can happen at every time, in private life and in business life too. And you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. Within minutes, the landscape changed completely. And so just copy-paste European managing standards to a market like Uganda will never work. Merge it. Say, what are the advantages of planning and structure, but merge it with flexibility. So and be flexible, always be flexible to have more flexibility or more strategy and plan. This is a huge challenge, and but in the meantime, I really like it, and I will give you an example. We have a lot of NGO business here, and many of these NGOs are internationals, United Nations agencies, USAID, GIZ, just to name drop. And these agencies or NGOs are working with a blend of international staff and local staff. And we started to have a different approach to this client. So if necessary, more European, more Western style, or more African style. And this helped a lot. So it is.
But I want you to pause. Wait, this is really important. More European style or more African style? What is a European style that you used? What is an African style that you used? Tell us.
The African style is create a relationship, the personal relationship. Yes. And the European style is come with the facts about why radio, why ears, how to improve radio campaigns, how to have a reliable monitoring, yes, and enable processes which are efficient and effective. That's my job then. And but it's, I think it's less than 50%. The other 50, the relationship is more important than the other thing. But our processes, our standards, our strategy is the difference. It's our advantage in competition.
Right. Okay, so if you look forward now, do you see this market changing significantly, Uganda, but not just Uganda, the East African radio market? Because when we talk about radio in the developed world, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but let's call it mature markets, the US, Canada, Australia, even South Africa, the UK. Many people have talked about the fact that there's far more competition from on-demand audio now, and radio listening is declining, and fewer young people have the habit of listening to radio. Is that situation different in East Africa, or once broadband proliferates, becomes cheaper, younger people will do what young people do everywhere else in the world and stay on TikTok more than they are with the radio station? What's going to happen there?
This will happen in East Africa too, but much later than in Europe. The reason for this, first, only a small percentage of the rural people have access to electricity, reliable access to electricity. And 80% of the people live in rural areas. Second, mobile communication, smartphones. About 16% of the people here in Uganda have a smartphone. 84% not. The phones, the phones are very old-fashioned with buttons. Yes, it is. And
sure.
There's one important difference to Europe. Every single mobile phone has an FM receiver. And mobile phones are very, very important for people to access to radio.
Yeah.
And therefore, it will take at least another 10 years, to have a stable, reliable electricity grid in Uganda. There is improvement, but without that, we won't have a fast development for digital, neither audio or video.
So a good runway is what you're saying. There's a very good runway for FM radio in Uganda and other parts of East Africa, maybe.
Well, yes, it is, but we would be stupid if we ignore digital. Step by step, yes. And the good thing is we can learn. We can learn from the more developed countries how to go our first steps. Until now, a lot of radio stations do not stream. You can't listen to them via net, yes, because what are their challenges now? To pay the gas for the generator if there's power failure, that they can continue to broadcast even without electricity. That is the challenge today, that the generator is working and has enough diesel to work. And but it will come. It will come, and but much slower than in Europe.
Good. Give us an insight into the sorts of technology that you are using in your studios for your transmitters. You would have come again from a market that has robust technology, the most advanced equipment, sound processing is excellent. How does all of that happen in Uganda? Is it put together by sticky tape, or in fact, do we have really good? Because I mean, again, the poverty does put a cap on how much investment you can make in capex at the various radio stations and so on. And I know you're the sales house, so you're not directly in the stations, but part of your obligation, I guess, in the same way that you're making processes more sophisticated, creating efficiencies in sales and so on with that aggregation. Perhaps you talk back to some of your customers and say, hey, you got to improve your sound if you want an advertiser to put more money with you, because your listeners got to hear you better. Or how does that technology stream work in Uganda? What's missing? What's needed?
Well, there is room for improvement, and the room isn't small. But first, I want to repeat something. If you compare to European standards, it's difficult, but that's not necessary. Here, you need not the best equipment, but a better equipment than your competitor. Yes, this is the challenge you have to win. Yes, to be better than your competitor. Well, there is for communication between the sales house and the stations. Well, this is a lot of WhatsApp, even of WhatsApp, but in the increasing business, we now have developed some standards, for example, to submit spots. Yes, if you only have 5 spots in a week, then you can do it via WhatsApp. If we have 50 in a week, and maybe distributed in 15 different languages, you need standards and processes. And that's the way we are going, step by step. And the equipment of the station themselves is difficult. You have some rich stations which are state of the art, but the majority works under difficult conditions. And this is very important. It's very important because they are in a vicious cycle. The vicious cycle is because they don't participate on the advertising market, they have a financial issue. Because they have a financial issue, they can't invest in technique. Because they have a financial issue, they can't invest in their people. To hire the best journalists, yes, and if they educate journalists, some rich stations from Kampala will recruit them, and to create sustainable revenues for the stations is so important that they are able to invest in technique, in equipment, and in their people. And when they invest in their people, then that their staff is staying with them and not leaving after some months. The broadcasting is usually there's one mast per station, and 60 to 90 kilometers reach. But this is not a weakness, it's a strength, because of the limitations of FM. Radio is able to serve to the diversity of this country. Yes, if you are a national TV broadcaster, you have one program for the whole country. As a radio, you have only your community and 50, 60 kilometers surrounding. Yes, but you broadcast in the local language. So this must remain. It's the musts are so important for the success and future of this industry. And the invests will be within the studios, and if we will have really big business with them, to have a standard process, standard software, where we work with together as ears and the stations.
Fantastic.
But long way to go still.
And I think that's an important place to end. There's a long way to go. There's a long road. And here at RedTech, part of our objective, what we do is we want to connect people who are part of the radio and audio community from all over the world. And that's one of the reasons I've reached out to you, because you have the experience of the European market. Now you're experiencing something completely new, an East African market, and that growth trajectory, as you say, you've got, firstly, it looks good. So there's lots of potential, and you're beginning to unearth that potential. But importantly, as you say, there's a long way to go to get to levels of sophistication that you want to get to. And we want to check in with you. So I'm going to give you another 2 to 3 years and then check in with you and say, okay, so how's it gone? Maybe you'll have more battle scars to talk about. It'll be really interesting. But I want to thank you, Alexander, for this conversation.
Thank you, Omar.
I want to salute your bravery, your courage to do something, to go completely out of your comfort zone, to try something extremely different from what you're used to. And I'm sure it's going to be a great success, because like you said, when we were having this conversation, I think when we were preparing for it, one of the things you value among the people that you've met is, no matter what their circumstance is, the attitude is the right attitude. And it's the attitude to do better and to grow. So fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for your conversation, Alexander. Have a lovely rest of the day in Kampala, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omar. Same to you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.